So Path of Exile 2 has been released for a couple weeks now, and I have been introduced into a new world of content creators. And I see a lot of people out there talking about Path of Exile 1 versus Path of Exile 2, but a lot of content creators are also talking about the new player experience for Path of Exile 2. And I thought to myself, I'm a new player to Path of Exile 2. In fact, I'm just a new player to ARPGs. So if you guys are on the fence as to whether or not you're going to pick up Path of Exile 2, or if you're an experienced gamer and you're just here to roast a noob over ARPGs, sit down. Let's chat a while. Since December 6th, I have been utterly addicted to Path of Exile 2, and I have been having both a good and frustrating time with it as a new player, and we're going to get into a lot of that. Now, I have only ever live streamed one session of me playing Path of Exile 2, which was from Act 2 in normal. I wasn't on cruel difficulty, and this was probably the part of the game that I was having the most difficulty with. So, although I am going to be talking about the fun that I had with this game and some of the problems that I had, I figured I'd take footage from the hardest part of the game for me so you guys can enjoy. The first thing up that I want to talk about is the difficulty of the game. Path of Exile 2 came out with a lot of people saying that it was way too hard. The difficulty and the bosses and the mobs and the body blocking and everything surrounding it was just so much harder than Path of Exile 1. Now, from a player who doesn't play ARPGs, from somebody who plays more open world RPGs or first-person shooters and just a variety of different games, this being my first ARPG, the difficulty for me was fine. The difficulty for me, I felt, was pretty fair overall, and one of the things that I know that I could do is if I ever got stopped somewhere on a boss or a mob or whatever it was, I could always go back, farm some higher gear, and go back and try again, gain some levels, and do it that way. Now, I have been told in my comments section that apparently is an Elden Ring frame of mind, and that only Elden Ring players should ever think about farming gear to beat a boss, and I've never played a FromSoft game. So let's clear that out of the way right away. I don't play FromSoft games. I never have. I probably never will. I don't know. They haven't ever grabbed me from the gameplay that I've seen, but that's where I'm at. So for those of you out there who are saying you've absolutely played all of the Souls games and you're just a tryhard and this, that, and the other thing, no, not even close. Not even close. Yeah, I think my buddy left one of them here one time. I have to go upstairs and check. But anyway, the difficulty for me overall was pretty fair. The only thing that I really had a problem with and still have a problem with in the game are the ranged mobs. Now, for me, that is my Achilles heel in any game. If there are archers or if there's any sort of caster or anything that's out of the way, I'm using a monk, as you can see in the gameplay, and any sort of ranged mob outside of the swing of my staff, I just can't get to, and they really end up destroying me. I know a lot of people complained about the beetles, but I always tend to be the guy that doesn't have an issue with the thing that everybody else has an issue with. But I have an issue with like the easiest thing that everybody's like, really, dude? That's the thing that gets you? I don't know why. That's just where I'm at. And that's just how it happens for me. So for me, overall, the bosses and the mobs, let's get into that. How did they function in the game? Well, the mobs absolutely come in, and I use a StarCraft reference for those of you who know, Zerg rush you. No, I didn't play StarCraft. Yes, my friend did, and he taught me that. But everybody knows what a Zerg rush is. They just send bodies after you, and these mobs come in full swing and full tilt most of the time. Again, the body blocking mechanic is really interesting, especially when you get caught on the environment. I tend to get caught on the environment more than I get caught by the bodies of the enemies that are fighting me because, well, I'm just not that good of a player. The bosses, however, are really interesting. I have a love-hate relationship with the bosses. One of the hardest bosses in the game for me was Balbala. The first time that I fought her, I kept calling her Baba Yaga for a few days because I couldn't figure out what her name was. But Balbala absolutely bodied me like 20 times, and I just kept hitting my head against a rock. And honestly, I was just playing the monk the wrong way. At that point in time, I had it in my head that I could just kite, use Glacial Cascade, and, take out the bosses and tank them for the most part. And overall, that strategy kind of worked up to that point. But all of the bosses having wildly different mechanics to a certain extent really makes you go, this one tactic might carry you through a few boss fights, but it's not going to carry you through all of them. And that was one of the interesting things that I thought about. However, the part that I really just found kind of heartbreaking about some of these bosses is once you get to a certain power level, you can pretty much trivialize them. A lot of the bosses, even in Act 2, I was taken out in one, maybe two tries. And a lot of the bosses in Act 3, I was taking out in one try. And even once I got to cruel difficulty, the bosses were going down really, really fast. A lot of the bosses that I was still having trouble with mobs. I still could not wave clear. Still can't wave clear. I'm trying to work on maps right now and I'm progressing very slowly, but I can take down the big bad monsters. I just can't take down the mobs that rush me. But that's kind of my love-hate relationship, is the boss mechanics of a lot of these bosses are so interesting and you kind of want to engage with them. But on the flip side of it is the bosses hit so freaking hard in the game, you'll get one tapped by them. So it's this thing where I really want to enjoy the mechanics of the bosses that I fought in the story for new players, right? We're not talking about end game stuff. We're talking about stuff for new players. I really wanted to enjoy those mechanics a lot of the time, but I knew that if I didn't go in hard and heavy and try to get it done fast, there was no way I was going to survive. And in a lot of cases, even when I did that, I ended up getting got. I'm not saying every boss I got in 1 or 2 tries. There were definitely some that were, like I said, 6 or 7. Those were fewer, but there was one, like I said, Balbala really gave me a struggle when I did Act 2 for the first time. Once I got to Act 2 for the second time in cruel difficulty, I think I put Balbala down in like 45 seconds. It was ridiculous. You gain so much power so fast in this game that a lot of times you can somewhat trivialize what you're doing. And it was just really interesting, and it does make you think, oh yeah, my character build is getting really good. But also it makes me think, wow, why did they put this boss in here if I can just go in and take it out like that? There's a balancing issue in my personal opinion. If I'm that strong that I can wipe bosses in 45 seconds, but they're also that strong that they can wipe me in one hit, and there's not really this dance that you play, this thing that you do that I've done in many games before, where a boss fight actually takes a minute or two or a couple minutes, and you know, it's very balanced out. I definitely think there's a balance issue there, and I don't know how quite to solve it because I'm not here to solve that problem. That's for GGG to solve. I'm just here to tell you what I experienced in the game. Moving on further, the satisfying leveling when you win. I love this. This is so fun, guys. When you finally beat that boss that is just driving you nuts, or you finally clear that area, or the first time that I cleared like I said, Balbala, or I got past the Act 1 boss, which by the way is the best set piece in the game, period. The Act 1 final boss, best in the game. The atmosphere, I wish I could comment on the music. I can't really comment on that because I don't play with headphones. I usually leave my headphones out and I put YouTube over on my desk. So for those of you that are like, what do you mean you played this game with YouTube on your phone? That's what I do. I don't like putting my headphones in when I play games. I just, Sonic Overload gets to me. But that feeling that you get when you finally tank that boss, you finally get to move forward, or when you're going through the cruel difficulty and you're mowing down things, because there were moments where I did that, even though a lot of the mobs were getting to me, some of them weren't, and I did feel awesome. Like I was absolutely progressing in my power level. And I do hope when they bring out Acts 4, 5, and 6 that they keep cruel difficulty, so you can go, not that it's necessary for you to go through cruel difficulty to get to maps, but it would be kind of fun to do Acts 1 through 6 on normal mode and then do it Acts 1 through 6 on cruel difficulty to have a good time and just kind of see where you stack up with everything being leveled up at your current level. It's a blast. I love the way that GGG did this. You absolutely start to feel powerful in the game. And overall, that is such a satisfying game loop to engage with. The Ascension trials need tuned. This is something that I have seen universally from a lot of people, and it is something that I feel as well. They did work on it. They did work on a patch recently that helped with it, but it still feels, they still feel pretty tough. It's definitely something, and obviously you have to use currency in the game, or a type of currency in the game, to even unlock these trials. And when you're doing that, then you lose the currency. And do you have more of it? In my case, yes, I did, so I didn't really care because I had enough of it. But if the RNG isn't dropping for you, then I really don't know what to say about all that. It's just, that's how it is. So the Ascension trials just kind of need to be tuned, because the RNG might not favor you. And that brings me to my goods and my bads about the RNG system. Even before they did the massive buff in the game to help players and make sure that the RNG was giving people the appropriate amount of level upgrades, I was actually getting a lot of drops, and I was getting very lucky, and I was having a blast. At least I think I was getting lucky. Now, the one thing that I will tell you, if for some reason you feel that you are getting unlucky with your drops and it's just not helping, do what I did, and just die a lot in every level. And I promise you, if you roll that RNG enough from the mobs, you will get good gear, because that's kind of what I had to do. Like I said, the mobs got me so many freaking times in this game, and I kind of don't care, because after about the 4th or 5th time they got me in a certain area and I finally beat them, I got good drops. In fact, I just kept continuously getting good drops, and I would go and sell it and buy more gear and go to the vendors and do that. So the RNG in this game is going to be wildly unpredictable for the player experience. And I know this because I was playing alongside my buddy, who actually, he came from Path of Exile 1, and I was telling him about all this really cool stuff that I was getting, and he's like, yeah, I haven't seen any of that. And still to this day, even after they buffed the system, the RNG still isn't favoring him a lot. And I finally told him, I was like, dude, have you just tried wiping a bunch? Have you just let them get you? Just let the mobs get you, go back, do it again. And he's like, no. Dude, he's like, I'm playing maps and I lose the maps and I'm not about to lose these. I'm like, all right, whatever. The more dice you roll, the better gear you'll get. It's the dumbest thing. I know it sounds stupid, and I know there's people scratching their heads right now like, is this guy serious? Really? Just wipe a bunch of times and you'll get, hey, if you roll more, you will get better gear. And that's how I play. I just wipe a lot, and then you know, I don't wipe intentionally, but yeah. So the final thing that I really want to touch on is I played with controller. Actually, that controller. A lot of you people are like, sacrilege, why are you playing this game on controller? I grew up with controller. I never got into computer gaming as a kid. Playing on mouse and keyboard is highly uncomfortable for me. It just is. I didn't have a gaming computer when I was a kid. Didn't really have a lot of money. I had an Xbox. My parents bought me one of those for Christmas. Still have it. It's pretty nice. Well, it's old now. But yeah, I played on controller. And one of the things that I told my buddy who played on mouse and keyboard that controller provides that the mouse and keyboard doesn't is that rumble factor, right? Those rumble packs in my Elite 2 over here felt so freaking good once I finally was able to get my charge staff on my Ice Monk and start utilizing all of that. My character felt powerful. I was smiling while I was clearing mobs. So for those of you out there who are controller players and you wonder, man, does this game feel good on controller? I think it feels good on controller. However, that being said, target acquisition on the controller is rough. It feels somewhat random at points, and if you're trying to move around and use the dodge roll, it will retarget and reselect things as you're moving the stick. It doesn't have like an auto target that just kind of locks you on to the one target that you're fighting until you're done beating it, or until you hit another target. It will legitimately shift as you're moving the left thumbstick around. So that's kind of where it really gets a little bit frustrating for me when, again, a lot of mobs are coming out. I'm trying to hit one, and because Ice Monk has a dash move on it and the dash causes me to jump, I will go from hitting my Tempest Bell to not hitting my Tempest Bell and bouncing around and then going back to it because mobs are closing in while I'm trying to down a rare or down a higher level magic monster. It's just one of those things that maybe watch out for that, maybe look out for that. Overall, the controller experience was an absolute blast. Overall, I think that Path of Exile 2 is a wildly fun game. I actually just got my wife into it as well, and I am very, very happy that I picked it up. My experience is going to be wildly different than yours based off of the role that you get, based off of the gear that you get, and probably the build that you get. I will say this, for me to go through Act 1, starting off the game, to the final boss of Act 3, Cruel, took me more hours than you guys would probably want to know. I think it took me close to 70 or 75 hours to do. And for those of you going, dear God, why did it take you that long? Well, there's a lot of reasons that it took me that one. There's a lot of reasons that it took me that long. And that's because, God, I can't talk today. One, I got wiped a lot. And two, I was making mistakes with my build, specifically in the gear that I was wearing. I actually found out my passive tree building was doing fairly well. I came across a video when I was really struggling, and it was a guy who did an ice monk build, very, very similar to what I was doing. And I was like, oh, he just knows it better. Okay, I'll watch his video. What's his passive tree look like? Holy crap, his passive tree is where mine is. And then I found out it's a gear problem. I was trying to stack in armor for my monk, thinking that armor did anything in this game. Well, come to find out, armor really doesn't. Now I'm stacking evasion and energy shield, and also trying to get my resistances where they need to be. And my character and my playthrough is doing so much better. I really didn't have to move a lot of skill points down. I think I took 5 skill points away to respec those. But overall, I had a good time with my character. I had a fun time with it, but I do think the game needs tuned, especially when you start mowing down bosses. And I don't know how they do that. I don't know if there's a way for people to scale the bosses to a point where it's a fun experience, or if everybody just wants to go in and just melt them all the way to the ground. There are some of them that are so fun to play against, and you just get this really satisfying feeling after you fight them for a minute. Or, well, I should say for a couple of minutes. But overall, when you go through it and you fight them again and you melt them in 45 seconds, that's also kind of fun too, because you started off getting bodied by these things. Now you're in cruel mode, and now you're bodying them. And maybe that's where the glory of this game is. That is, in fact, what ARPGs are. They are a power fantasy, and you can definitely feel your power grow as you go on. Overall, my new player experience has been, it's been all over the place. It has been frustrating. It has been exhilarating. It has been thoughtful. I have had to learn how to stack all my stuff and make sure that I'm appropriately working with my passive tree, and making sure that my gear, and making sure that my resistances are all up, and making sure that I, as a player, am on my toes, even if I have a YouTube video playing on my phone, which I should probably not do that, because I've heard the sound of this game is really, really awesome. So I'm going to take everybody's word for it. I'm probably just going to go pick up the soundtrack if they ever release it, and just listen to it, and then I'll find out. But for those of you out there wondering, should you try Path of Exile 2? I don't know. Do you guys play open world RPGs? Do you guys like games that have somewhat of a challenge, but after you overcome that challenge, you will feel the power fantasy real good? Are you the type of person that likes slinging elemental damage all over the screen in just a wonderful, explosive color rainbow, or whatever we're going to call it? Are you the type of person that will get frustrated at any sort of pushback in a game? Well, if you don't like pushback, this game's probably not for you. But if you like something that has a challenge and it's going to reward you for overcoming that challenge, I would say as a new player, check it out. Path of Exile 2 is really fun. It might be very frustrating at times, but if you stick it out, I promise you, the rewarding feeling that you get from playing this game, whether you're on mouse and keyboard, or you're a scrub like me and you play with a controller, I think ultimately it's going to be worth it in the end. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for checking out A Drink with Crazy. And as always, until next time, cheers, everybody. Oh, hey, I forgot to say, I got merch down below. You guys should check out the merch. It's cool. I got merch. Cheers. They're going to call me an alcoholic now.